I spent a wonderful hour and a half with Alana, Greenwood Solutions Project Coordinator. We talked about the difference between the project coordination role that she's currently in and project management. We also talked about her personal goals and where she's come from previously from a professional perspective. What was really interesting was learning about the day-to-day activities, the amazing juggling that you have to actually do to be a good project coordinator, and also the attention to detail that's required for this role. But most importantly, what I learned is that a good project coordinator actually likes other human beings and has an empathetic side, as well as being incredibly attention to detail, process, procedure, and empathy. So without further ado, let's listen to the podcast. Yeah, we're here today talking with Alana, project coordinator at Greenwood. And now I'd like to start off with project coordinator. We were talking about this before.
You were?
There's your official job description, JD,
Yep.
is project controller.
Correct.
So let's start off with the difference between the project controller and what you are actually doing as a project coordinator. Yeah.
Okay, so to me, Valley, I believe there's not too much of a difference. I think a project controller and a project coordinator still get involved with your project day to day. Your setup. The delivery phase, as well as your project closeout, to ensure successful completion of a project. But essentially, my understanding from previous roles was a project controller was probably more so heavily involved in the finance side with your project manager. Don't get me wrong, I still do get involved in finances, especially with, your procurement and labour, ensuring that we're, achieving or, staying under budget. But yeah, essentially, we obviously have a finance team here at Greenwood that probably more so, look after the finance side.
So would you, is that fine? So you're obviously comfortable with the financial side of things as well, because that's what you've done this before. Because there's a lot of people who aren't comfortable with anything to do with financial.
Yeah.
So in your previous jobs, and I know you work for, let me try to get this right, Zinfra.
Well done.
Because I was saying they're under Gemini, but I was practicing last night actually, and I heard Andre say it again. I thought, yeah, I've pronounced it right. So at Zinfra, were you a project coordinator or were you a project controller?
Neither, funnily enough. So when I started at Zinfra in 2019, I started as a projects administrator, working on multiple projects at one time. So they were substation, terminal station, power or HV jobs up to 500 kilowatt. Excuse me. Sorry, 500,000 I meant to say. My voice is going.
Have a drink of water.
I
will too.
I'm starting to lose my voice.
No, I'm a little bit like that as well. It's someone when I was up in Sydney the other week, I just got dry mouth syndrome 10 seconds before I went on stage. I'm like, and it happened to me when I was in Brisbane as well.
Yeah.
The same bloody thing was sorry about swearing. Same thing. It's some body response thing that your mouth taps up a little bit.
Yeah.
And then my wife said, maybe you're getting old and you just have to have for old people who have dry mouths, they have to have a special ointment. And I went, I don't want to go down that road. But
you're definitely not there yet, I don't think.
Some days I feel. So you were at Zinfra.
Well done. Yes.
Were not doing a project coordinator role?
Not essentially, but obviously not officially. But my day-to-day when I was a project administrator, obviously coordinating a lot of jobs, was ensuring that, the site, administrative roles that were required to, to ensure that the site was functioning were, actioned and, worked with the construction manager and working with the key personnel on site to make sure that we were achieving what we needed to get done for that site, whether it was ensuring, timesheets were entered or running, ordering more stock for, say, HSE, PPE, supplies for the team on site, ensuring that the cleaner was coming, because if the cleaner doesn't, things like that, just the effective day-to-day running of a site or a project.
And this is obviously in the electrical field,
Correct.
right? So
Yep.
was the transition from Zinfra.
Well done.
I'm just using it because I can pronounce it properly now.
It's in your memory bank
It
now.
is. From Zinfra to Greenwood wouldn't have been that radical as
No.
opposed to someone who came from a non-electrical background, as in when I say you were working in an industry that's involved in HV, all of that stuff,
Correct.
substations, what have you, and you've come to Greenwood. Okay, we're not doing substations.
No.
We may one day, but you would have gone, okay, I can sort of understand this.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So when I did come to Greenwood, there was definitely, similar processes and things that we do here. That was definitely, the same as Zinfra. So whether it was, HSEQ procedures or, just your general day to day, whether it's how you order things, the procurement process, very, very similar.
Were you already interested or had an interest in renewable energy before joining Greenwood?
Funnily enough,
personally,
funnily enough, yes, I did. So, a previous role of mine as a administrator, probably about 10, 15 years ago now, I worked for Origin Energy in Queensland on site for a coal seam gas major pipeline construction project. So obviously working for Origin, obviously they're huge in renewables now. So back then, there was a huge emphasis on what is solar, how does solar benefit you, the homeowner, benefit us, benefit our world, our planet, clean renewables, et cetera, et cetera. So obviously we had quite there might have been presentations or conferences where you would have a bit of exposure to what solar is. And funnily enough, there was an ad that caught my eye when I worked with Origin. I think must have been at home on break at the time. And then it was a Origin Energy solar ad where there was this gentleman with his caravan out the front of someone's house trying to use some of their solar, pinch a little bit of their solar to run his caravan. And it was just one of those ads that just stuck with me. And I just thought, that is really cool. Oh, not stealing someone's solar, obviously, but having solar, being able to control, have your own energy and your own outputs and, be just the cleaner way to, sustainable energy.
It is weird. I always think it's still weird after being in this industry for over 20 years that, you have the sun, it comes down, you capture that energy. You're capturing wind energy. We're not doing too much in the area of wind. We will be, but it's still quite fascinating to me that how it actually works. It's really quite weird in a good way. Now, the businesses that you've worked for previously were quite large. I mean, Zinfra was huge. Origin is humongous huge.
Yeah.
What was the difference coming to, say, a smaller company like Greenwood? And when I say small, we've got probably 40 or 50 people now on the books.
Yeah.
Was there any how did that feel coming to a smaller company? Yeah.
It was definitely a bit of an adjustment, and not in a negative way, definitely in a positive way, just to see how, obviously the processes that are big, national or global company, follow to ensure that, smooth running of their businesses. And then I came here, and at the time when I did start at Greenwood, the start of 2024, we were even smaller than what we are now.
Yes.
Yeah, we were very little. So I guess it was more about, understanding how Greenwood operate and, what processes do they follow, to ensure success of, project delivery and just every day, day-to-day business structure. And yeah, definitely I could see some different differences, but also some similarities, in some of the things that we do from a day to day.
It's, a lot of people, there's a common misconception that just because a company is really big,
Mm,
that it's super more efficient. And in actual fact, it can get to the stage where over a certain number of employees, the company actually becomes less efficient because it becomes so large and it's more of a beast and it's harder to control.
yeah.
What are some of the things, if any, like that you brought from, say, Zinfa and Origin, like from a process or procedural kind of thing that you thought, hey, I can really apply it here? Is there anything that comes to mind?
Um, I definitely think some things, obviously, communication is key for me in any role that I undertake or any role that I do at Greenwood and in my previous career history. But essentially, I feel that, you need to communicate. Communication is key. And you also, so verbal is also, key, but I think written. So always ensure when you are communicating, especially, when you're dealing with external stakeholders, whether it's subcontractors, clients, if you are communicating, especially anything important, anything that needs to be tracked, make sure you follow up with written, verbal and written. Like, we do so much in our day to day business, in our roles that, we're human, right? So you've just got to make sure that when you clear, concise communication with whatever you do, especially when you're communicating with internal and external stakeholders and personnel, but obviously ensuring that you just have that written
It's an evidence thing
communication. It's
too,
an
isn't it?
evidence, yeah.
Isn't it? Because
Yeah,
if you and I can have a conversation, and if there's
100%.
no one else listening to it or it's not being recorded or whatever,
Mhm.
you could technically go, "No, I didn't say that," and I go, "Well, yes, you did," and you go, "No, I didn't," and you go, "Okay," but if it's something in an email or there's a document that people have signed their names to, suddenly it becomes this evidence that
Mhm.
can be used in whatever way, and it's so, and there's no room for, I suppose, oh, they said this, they didn't say this. There's no room for any sort of subjectivity, I suppose, really, is there?
Correct. Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Now, there's some really big platforms out there, and obviously any decent sized company is using various platforms for recording information and documentation. And I know you said off camera that at a previous job you used it sounded like the all-in-one program. Um, is there an advantage when a company's getting bigger, do you think, to use like one platform, or is it still a case, because we're doing Greenwood's perspective, doing so many sort of very varied things, that we have to use multiple platforms? This is a personal opinion I'm asking. Yeah.
Well, my personal opinion about it is hard because, you in a perfect world, I don't even know if there is one system that caters for every single process, every single thing that you like a company does, and to cater for those needs. And let's be honest, we may love a system, but there is always a system that you use that has its disadvantages to you, like to you or to me. Nothing's perfect in this world. But I did obviously come into Greenwood. We do use multiple platforms, but we've also worked really hard within the business to consolidate some of those platforms, and obviously do some research and a bit of an audit as to what we can look at. Either removing and replacing with something else or combining with other existing systems that we have. So I do think that Greenwood's doing a great job in spending time on ensuring that we are only using what we need, and that we can consolidate where possible to ensure that we're not using as many platforms as we have in the past.
It's a dynamic process, isn't it? Because I know in other areas, if you're migrating from one platform to another,
Yeah.
it can be potentially catastrophic. So if you're putting in all the classic scenario, putting all your eggs in one basket, and you drop that basket, you're effectively, without saying the
Yeah,
word.
correct.
So if you spread, it's sort of like plan A, plan B, you spread around a
Yeah.
little bit,
Yeah.
but then the question is, how many different platforms do you want to spread around? And some of them are really expensive.
Correct.
And if you've got multiple users, it can really add up financially for a business.
Yeah, licenses are quite expensive that I've seen for some of the products that I've used currently here at Greenwood and in previous roles. They can be. So I feel like at Greenwood we have one system in particular that it seems to be quite versatile. You can use it for multiple things, and we have a brilliant management systems person who can, use this system to, to its, fullest and greatest capacity. So I feel like, with a system like that, if, for say HSEQ as an example, where it can basically do what, cater to whether it's, for your solar farms, your CNI and your O&M, then, excuse me, then you wouldn't need to have multiple, any more than a couple of systems, in my opinion. That's just my personal opinion.
And you concentrate on the CNI space, don't you?
I do.
You're more of the rooftop kind of solar, the big commercial stuff, maybe up to 1 megawatt on a roof.
Correct.
And
correct.
For example, what about, say, a 1 megawatt ground mount job in far regional Victoria? Is that under your...
Yep, it can be.
On these projects, is there more work with the Greenwood team or these subcontractors? It seems like seems to be more work with the subcontractors.
There definitely is a lot of work with the subcontractors.
Because we're not doing everything in-house like we used to when we were smaller. And we're not specialists in trenching and fencing and other stuff and plumbing and what have you. We know what we know and we'll do, so that's why we're using a lot of subbies, aren't we?
Especially for these larger commercial jobs, Valley, that's correct. So we do we've got some preferred subcontractors, primarily in the civil and electrical space, for that and obviously we're using mostly subcontractor labour for Wendouree. There has been other tier 1 projects recently where we have also used civil and electrical labour. Obviously, Greenwood, we don't have an internal civil team. We do have a small number of internal electricians with the CNI space, but due to our huge growth, we definitely, due to our current size of our electricians, we need to source electrical labour for a lot of these larger megawatt projects.
It's a funny thing, is because there's a natural progression. You start off as almost like a sole trader. Eddie started off a long time ago in his bedroom, and then he got a couple of people he used to work with previously, built the team up there, and with his, he's got pretty good vision, and things seem to be progressing at just the right rate. And as you get bigger, you can't do everything, and you have to say to yourself, I'm not a specialist in these areas, and I don't want to be. Let's get people external from Greenwood and to do this work, but by the way, we have to manage them as well. It's like what kind of attributes as a person do you need to be a good project coordinator? Or maybe we'll go, what attributes you have to be a good project coordinator?
Should we start with the cards or can I start with the
You
cans?
can start either. There you go.
Well, I think the attributes that I know, I feel that I can bring, have brought, and will continue to bring to this role is, and I did touch on this before, was the key communication, not just to your internal team, but your key stakeholders, your subcontractors, clients. And also I feel that you obviously need to be, prioritising your work. So I assist on about 6 projects at the moment, different stages. So there's different tasks and different responsibilities for each project at the moment, but it's all about time prioritization. And, just ensuring that, you're meeting your targets for what you've set yourself, or what the project targets are. And if you are a little bit, swamped, which sometimes I can be, the team here is great. You just reach out to the project manager or to the CNI head of operations, and we band together and we work together and we solve problems together. We, look at, how to, move forward on certain, if we've got a couple of roadblocks, whether it's with, subbies that may not be inducted, but, are coming to site, things like that. It's just working on projects together and banding together as a team. But in terms of the good attributes, I think you just need to be, understand the systems that you're using as well. Clear, concise, and effective communication, and ensuring that, you work closely with your team to work through any issues or problems that arise from, the start to the end of a project.
It seems to me also when talking with you that the ability to not to make mountains out of molehills is probably a really good attribute, because there's, you've told me you're dealing with 6 different projects and all the complexities of each project.
Yep.
There's 6 of them, and then you're combining all this stuff. It's like you're juggling 6 different, you're a juggler, and a lot of people with the, I suppose, the wrong personality.
Yep.
I won't say wrong personality. I'll rephrase
Different.
that. A personality may not be suited to this kind of job.
Yep.
Because there's a lot. So how do you cope with that? How do you say to yourself, yeah, okay, I'm just doing one thing at a time. I've got these 6 projects. There's all these things going on. How do you how do you determine, no, one thing at a time? I'm just going to do this, and I'm going to move to this. What's your process?
My main process might not work for everyone, but it works for me.
Yep.
To-do lists. And I know that doesn't, in a perfect world, that is probably everyone's answer. But I think if I write down what I've got to do, so what I've may have not been able to complete from the day before, put everything together, things that I can foresee happening today, prioritizing them and just working through them as best I can within the time frame, and what's highest priority. It's a bit cliche, but it does work for me.
Is that written on a piece of paper?
It is.
Because a lot of people obviously use computers and stuff. And
I use both. Yep. So my computer, I set up categories in my email inbox to, and then, so say I'm waiting for a response on an email or something that it's on hold, things like that, just to be able to easily categorize where things are at and what status they're up to. And to ensure that nothing gets missed. I think that's my pet fear, that I would miss, a critical or urgent query that, due to the large amount of emails that I can get from day to day, is missing something. So you need to have that time to be able to prioritize and work through what is most, highest priority, and just work through your list as best you can.
You would have noticed, because you've been working for maybe 15, 20 years?
I am coming up to full time. Actually, I'm 20 years in April, which is this month. Yeah, 20 years.
So you would have seen the change, like from the perspective technology-wise, the kind of computers we use, the amount of emails we get now compared to, say, 15, 20 years ago.
Definitely.
And it's funny that we're all in this industry, and no matter what we're doing, we are bombarded continuously with this stuff.
Yep.
And the ability to categorize emails, tasks, is the ability to filter things so you can really look, I need to do this. I don't need to try to do it all in one go.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, and there is something that, you've been given. It might be a bit of a different task that you're not normally used to doing. It's just all about communicating with the person and just saying, hey, how's the best way you want me to approach this? And just, work together as a team.
Okay, here's a question.
Oh, here we go.
Is a good project coordinator a good project manager, and is a good project manager potentially a good project coordinator?
Oh, that's a good question. I feel that obviously I've worked closely with project managers for a number of years. Me personally, I feel like a project manager comes with a vast knowledge of experience. They obviously cover everything from, ensuring that we have a signed contract all the way through to managing, budgets, personnel on site, direct liaison with construction managers or supervisors. So they basically have their fingers in all the pies relating to egg. That's probably the best way to put it. Whereas, and obviously they can't, it's a lot for them to manage on a day to day. So they have someone to assist them, and that's essentially a project coordinator, which is me on this occasion. Excuse me. But I feel that a lot of the things we get involved in, so we get involved in schedules, we get involved in, management plans, we get involved in, ensuring the job is set up from the planning and execution stage all the way through to, project handover and closeout. So even though a project coordinator would understands a lot of what a project manager does, I think a lot of the decision-making power probably lies more with a project manager than a coordinator.
Okay. And I know hopefully all project managers use some kind of form of Gantt chart, right? To track the progress of the project.
Yep.
Is that something you use as well? Do you have the equivalent of your own Gantt chart, or is it slightly different?
No, we do use a Gantt chart for our individual projects, and then we also, which the project manager had created on this occasion, a all over Gantt, which definitely it represents, obviously our projects, estimated start dates, finish dates of new and existing projects, but we also it factors in any other changes of movement within our team. So whether someone's on leave, someone's away, it gives us good understanding and exposure of where our people are. Do we have enough resources on our projects? So it also assists from, in a scheduling, capacity as well, the Gantt overall visual. Being part of the selection process for new apprentices, being with them from their journey from day one, being their support, their guide, finding the right buddies for them, just being that person. That was just really rewarding. And I feel like at Greenwood, I do work closely with our apprentices. I've been here for 15 months now, and there's, apprentices that started probably not long before me, and I've seen them grow and develop and, assist them with schooling and making sure that they're given enough time to complete all their exam, assessments and things like that before exams, and just work, just being their support as much as I can, from Greenwood, being here at Greenwood.
I think, can I ask you this?
Sure.
It seems to, if you're doing this role, the best kind of people to be a project coordinator, you actually have to like people. And I know that sounds a bit trite, but a lot of people, they bear people, but other people actually genuinely enjoy interacting with other people. Would that be a fair assessment of yourself?
That is absolutely more than a fair assessment, Valley. I think you're right. That's probably something I should have said at the start. You have to enjoy working with people. You have to enjoy communicating with people, obviously professionally, but even on a personal level, ask how their weekend was, if someone's not okay, ask them if if there's something wrong, is there anything you can do to help? Just, liking people, wanting to work with people and to help people.
So you have a lot of empathy by the sound of it.
Yeah, I do. For the right people, I do.
And that would help not only personally, but that would help with your job, wouldn't it? Because
Correct.
you can see the other person's point of view,
Yep.
especially when you're dealing with so many different people.
Correct. Yep.
So really, straight away, the kind of person who shouldn't be a project coordinator, and I'll say this, is someone who probably doesn't have that much empathy and doesn't know how to manage people.
Yeah.
And that would
absolutely
apply to a project manager as well, wouldn't it?
Oh, for sure. Because, a project coordinator does deal with a lot of, like I've said, our internal staff, whether it's field, as well as our internal project office staff. Then you've got your subcontractors, you've got your clients, you've got delivery drivers. You are dealing with sometimes the public, wide range of people that you need to, have that rapport and relationships with from a professional level. So
it's really it's I think there's an old belief that, with the right training, anyone can become anything. But as far as I'm concerned, personally, that's a load of you cannot make people effectively do jobs they're not good at or
Correct.
don't want to do. You can
Correct.
try, you can hit them with a stick,
Figuratively speaking, for the record.
but
Yep.
they won't. It won't be beneficial for
Agreed.
everyone in concern. Now, project management, project coordination, differences. Discuss.
Ooh, okay. I like it straight to the point. Differences. Coordinator is probably more, we deal a lot more with systems. We would deal, well, this is my interpretation. We need to understand the systems we're working with, whether it's finance, whether it's safety, whether it's just your document management system, whether it's accounting, whatever it might be. You need to understand systems, which is probably more so what a project coordinator does. So we really more so assist the project manager with the things that the project manager won't have time to do. They should be, they need to focus on, working with the site teams, whether it's the construction supervisor, leading hand, whoever it might be, making sure that the site is effectively running from, a productivity as well as a safety perspective. They are the key liaison with, all of our departments, whether it's safety, finance, like I mentioned before. But I think obviously difference is the project manager would probably is more responsible of making the, high end decisions, because some of those decisions can result in, a project, changing for whatever reason, and hope, also hopefully in the more positive direction. But I really think we look after and we get involved in very similar day-to-day operations and tasks, but the project coordinator is more like their go-to, their 2IC for the successful delivery and running close out of a project.
So would you say that the transition, if someone want to become a project manager, if you're already a project coordinator, the transition to being a project manager wouldn't be as hard as, say, someone coming in from, say, another field?
I'd have to agree. From previous roles, I have seen some project coordinators, project controllers be appointed to a project manager role. And also sometimes from my experience, I've seen engineers probably more so becoming project managers, but I believe that there's no, in like degree or anything that you would have to do, like to be a coordinator to go to a manager, as far as I'm aware. But
it's interesting because a good project manager doesn't necessarily have to know the nitty gritty. Like, for instance, we're doing all this electrical work, and the project manager doesn't necessarily have to have electrical background. What
Correct.
they have to have is a experience in understanding what goes on, milestones, the fact there's a Gantt chart that you have to abide by, the ability to rapidly switch, I won't say multitask, but rapidly switch between different things with that end goal of achieving a successful project on time.
Correct.
And the project coordinator is helping them all the way.
Pretty much from start to finish. That's basically the difference. You've summarised it much better than I could, so thank you.
What about someone going the other way? What if someone was a project manager going to a project coordinator's position? I reckon that'd be harder.
I was going to say that would be a big, huge adjustment because, you're not powers, but you're what you would normally be control and have, visibility or exposure to, or, authority with, you would probably not have that. Well, you wouldn't have half of that because of the decision making and obviously being involved in the nitty gritty of, site operations, things like that.
It's really, it's so you get to see at a granular level what's sort of going on probably a bit more than a project manager, I'd say, as a project coordinator, because you're doing all the nitty gritty stuff to actually deliver for the project manager what needs to be done.
Yeah. Yep. Sorry. So yes, I do from that side of things. Yes, I do. From creating a handover manual, from chasing up a certificate of electrical safety, like those are the things that where a project coordinator will manage and look after for the project manager. Yep.
So to decompress from all this,
Okay.
and we live in a world where we're mentally tired
We are.
and we're not physically tired, and it wasn't that long ago where and people forget that there's a lot more physical work being done. It's only in the last 50, 60 years that people, that office-bound, information jobs that we're doing, we're getting mentally tired, which is probably worse than being physically tired because, anyway, I won't go down this road. Physical tiredness, you actually sleep. Mental tiredness, it's sometimes
It's
hard to sleep,
correct.
depending. How do you decompress and where do you go? Where's your happy place or happy space to rejuvenate and think about the things in life that really matter?
So, obviously, you have probably known from our previous discussions off camera, and you've known me for a little while now. But essentially, my probably go-to place for when not just to to decompress from work, but just what I've always loved to do is have my own space at the Murray River. So I have a on-site caravan, probably about, let's say 50 minutes from Shepparton, if you know where that is. So if you're travelling up north along the Murray Valley Highway, you will reach a little town called Coonamoo, and that is on the Victorian side of the Murray River. If you cross the bridge, there is a town called Tokemall, which is on the New South Wales side. And there's a caravan park there that I've got an on-site caravan at, and it is my go-to wherever I have spare time, long weekends, Christmas, Easter. That's where I go just to relax. It's not always relaxing because I have two dogs. One's a Kelpie, one's a pug cross poodle. So they keep me on my toes, but that is my place to go. So whenever I get the opportunity, my partner and I and the dogs will head up to the river and just enjoy. My partner's got a boat, so we try and do a bit of water activities and just relax.
So what is it? Is it the water? Is it the river? Is it the dry heat? I mean, it's a nice heat, and especially around this time of year, it can be quite cold in the morning, but then when the sun comes out, it's fantastic. I know the Murray quite well myself.
Correct.
Is that what it is? If you could put your finger on, what's the attraction to that area? Like,
2 words: country air.
yeah, right. But you can get country air elsewhere, so there's something else going on, isn't there?
Well,
Is it the water, the river?
yeah, it is, and it's just.
I'm pushing the river, aren't I? Sorry.
I love the river. I mean, but the river. I mean, the Murray River goes for hundreds and hundreds of kilometres.
Yeah, it does.
But this particular spot, it's open, it's tranquil. You've got the river at where I am based at. It's got a man-made beach as well, like, so it's full of there's sand. So actually, besides the fact that it's dirty water, river mud water, and not salt water, that's the only difference. You would think you're at the beach almost. Like, it's just so peaceful and tranquil, and you let the dogs go down there early enough and let the dogs run off. Throw the stick and let them have the time of their lives, and it's just, I don't know, it just makes me happy. So
plus, you did this when you were a teenager too, going up the Murray, didn't you?
I've done that was more Echuca, Moama. So I've obviously moved up the river a little bit and enjoying different parts of the river at different stages of my life. So
I think it's important too, isn't it? Like those connections to when you are young, they can, especially the formative years of where you've gone camping. I know myself, we used to go a lot away to Wilson's Promontory. Mm-hmm. In a national park. You could never take dogs there because you weren't allowed to. That was the only downside, but got really fond memories of that. So yeah, it's such, and the Murray too. Moama, my grandparents had a place up there, so very fond memories.
Beautiful part there as well. Yeah, so we're very fortunate here in Victoria and Australia to have beautiful landscapes and beautiful country that we can go and relax and just decompress and just enjoy, what there is to offer in life.
Yeah,
Mhm.
exactly. It's and we need that on a regular basis because of this so much time spent in front
Yep.
of the computer with
Yep.
it, and this is you can't unless you're physically doing work. You're in front of a computer, and
Most of the day. Yep.
yeah, it's hard, isn't it? And being on call too with the phone kind of stuff, and that
Yep.
applies to any of these kind of jobs.
Hmm.
Um, Now I wanted to ask, yes, what is your I suppose when it comes to the logistics and procurement side of these jobs? I'll give you a scenario.
Okay, go.
We've got
Go.
a 500 kilowatt job.
Yep.
It's on a commercial roof. It might be a food distribution centre in the outer suburbs of Sydney, Melbourne, Adelaide, wherever. We're in Melbourne,
Yep.
and we are the EPC.
Yep.
We will be doing the main work on the switchboard,
Hmm.
and but we're going to sort of get another company maybe to install the panels.
Okay.
What happens? What's the process?
You're saying the panel, we need to go somewhere else to get the panels, or the
Well, we'll
subcontractor?
we'll we'll provide everything. Let's say we provide
Yeah.
all the equipment,
Yep.
right? But and we do from a labour perspective, we do the secondary protection board. We do all the work in the main switchboard.
Yep.
We design the system, but we get a subcontracting company to actually install the
Install the
panels.
panels.
But
Yep.
we might even throw in some labour ourselves, depending on what
Yep.
arrangement we come to. Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, essentially it's all about, working out what we need to purchase, what we need to do, from and a subcontractor. So whether we got electrical works that we're subbing out, we've got to factor in any civil, fencing, anything like that. A pricing sheet that has been agreed to by the client and Greenwood comes from our sales team as part of their handover from sales to delivery. So that is a good indication of what we need, who we need to look at engaging
Mm.
from a subcontractor perspective and start working through the process. So getting quotes for materials, liaising with the subcontractors about their scope of work, reviewing that, looking at, the pricing, quotations, making sure the project manager is happy and agrees to what was being proposed. And then we use Airtable as a system to track all of our procurement for each project. So we raise requests, PO requests, which automatically generates our purchase order based off the information that we provide in the request, including the quotation. Yeah, so that functionally will be our tool, I suppose, to track all of our purchase order raising for each project. So,
And are you responsible for when the equipment gets to site? Like,
yep, coordinate deliveries,
so who do you have
logistics.
discussions with the site supervisor? The example is if we're doing a lot of panels,
Yep,
sometimes there might not be room at site to store
yep,
a 1 megawatt or whatever size system. Let's in this case 500 kilowatt. Might not be enough room to store the panels, and we may our subcontractors, or if we're doing our job ourselves, we may not have enough staff on site to do the whole getting the panels onto the roof in one go.
yep.
Is that something that you're involved with, and liaising with our guys internally, or?
Yeah, correct. So essentially, obviously, the decision will be made by the project manager and the site supervisor on whether, due to the capacity of the panels, the order,
Mm-hmm.
and whether, obviously we have come in to instances where we have multiple roofs on a project. So, and we have a small team, so we need to do one roof at a time. So we separate the panel deliveries or the inverted deliveries. We have a really good relationship with our preferred suppliers, and essentially most of the time we reach out, say we need 650, 440 watt Jinko panels. But can we put them on hold and then coordinate with them directly on when the appropriate delivery dates are, and obviously ensuring that we communicate the information from the supplier to our site team, being the leading hand on site, which we use. We have project chat spaces set up where everyone on that project will have access and get the latest updates.
So there's a lot. There's a lot of that is to do with cash flow and when accounts are due and stuff with the
Yep.
timing of stuff, isn't it? Is that something that you're involved with, or?
Yeah, I do. I do to a certain level. I think our finance team
Yep.
obviously looks after the actual processing of the end of month cash flow and finance. But essentially, I do believe that some suppliers do request, or whoever it might be, us or them, we can do a bit of a cost budget flow, split where needed. But
Well, what advice would you have? Say there was a small business and they've been doing a bit of domestic and they've done a couple of 100 kilowatt solar jobs, right?
Mm-hmm.
Got a small team and they've won a half meg, right?
Yep.
What kind of advice would you give them from a project coordinator's perspective? Because they're not going to hire a project coordinator at this stage because there are only 5 or 6 of them.
Yep.
So what kind of have you got any tips and tricks or a particular way of looking at the project that you could pass on? Like, any tips and tricks? Yeah.
Something that the project manager the project manager has adopted from a previous system that Greenwood used before my time, which I find is really beneficial. It's kind of it's basically a start to finish checklist of everything that a residential or commercial solar job may ask you. So, like you said, the DNSP, STC, is it a job? Is it STCs or VEECs? Like your engineering requests, like from A to Z, this checklist has everything that you need to ensure that you've either looked at, actioned, or worked with the relevant parties on the project to ensure that whether it's engineering, to make sure that our documentation drawing packs are correct or are accurate, and we get them off to the client for review.
So basically, a project task list that's
pretty much
detailed.
Right, yeah.
Line 1 is this, line 2 is that.
Pretty much.
We're not talking a punch list, are we? That's a different story.
No, punch list is at the end of the job. So it's more of a punch list is like a defects list.
Right.
Yeah, or to look at any potential defects list.
So punch list is right at the end and signage hasn't been done. Maybe there's a couple of things, an issue with the shroud over the inverters because it's outdoors.
Correct.
That kind of stuff.
Correct.
Yeah.
Like as an example, one of our projects, our electrical inspector picked up a defect on one of our AC switchboards. So, that's kind of part of that process at the end of the job.
It is hard.
Handing back to the client.
It is hard for the guys when it comes to the standards. They're always changing, and there's things like signage. And a defect, lack of signage can be classed as a defect. We need to abide by all these standards.
Yep.
I'm going to talk about a situation where we're dealing not directly with the client, and for instance, we've got a project. It's called Project Blue. And we're dealing with our client called X. Shit. Sorry, Elon. Bad example.
This is great.
It's shocking. And their client is called Mr. White. And how do our processes differ? Because there has been occasions when Mr. White has come directly to us.
Correct.
So what do we do in these situations? Can you just run us through that scenario? Yeah.
Well, essentially, there has been instances, like you said, Valley, where Mr. White, who is the owner asset of the site that we're working on, but our principal contractor is
X.
Thank you. So there has been times where Mr. White will come directly to Greenwood. Whether it's about videography, whether it's about, certain, could be shutdown procedures. Obviously, we will always factor their, action, what they need. But obviously, we still need to go through the appropriate channels and ensure that client X is obviously is aware across this situation. So it could be, some design changes in a PVDB design, or we just whatever it is, we need to make sure that all communication runs through the chain. So if they come straight to us, that's fine. Being being Mr. White. But yeah, it needs to come through to eventually, or somehow the communication needs to go through into the middle as well, because that they are our client essentially, and then Mr. White is X's client. So we need to make sure that we've got the proper communication channels.
So because we have a contractual agreement with, in this case, X,
Correct.
company X.
Correct.
So we can't, circumvent, go around and start dealing directly with Mr. White, even though it may be advantageous to the completion of the project.
Correct.
For all concerned, we have to follow, correct
follow protocols.
Yeah,
we have a contract to abide by. And also, if you do take that, cutting out, company X, it can become messy, for whatever reason. But yeah, we obviously do our first, point of call, or our, liaison is our principal contractor, and then it is up to them to be liaising directly with the Mr. White. So
because obviously going forward, we want to get more projects from X.
We do 100%. We do.
Because it's not a one-off. We do not want to operate like that.
No,
and
especially when project X can give us quite large scale projects. In solar as well as battery operated energy storage system jobs, being BESS, BESS, and not just in Victoria, but also interstate. So we want to make sure that we maintain those client relationships, and ensure that we're adhering to our contractual obligations.
Because it's not only about our relationship with, in this case, X.
Yep.
It's also about the whole credibility and the reliability of Greenwood being able to conduct themselves in a fit and proper manner, succeed, get these projects completed. Everyone's happy, Mr. White's happy, X is happy, and we're happy. On to the next project.
Yep, correct.
So what advice would you have for a company that's maybe done, this had a direct, company A has gone directly to Mr. White because that's their customer, and then looking at another project where X has come along and said, "Oh, we've got this project." Is there what advice would you give them, moving forward in regards to, their processes and procedure, like anything that that differs a little bit, like what we've talked about. Gee, I'm all over the place.
I feel like we've thrown in a lot of X's and A's, and
I know.
Okay,
so
summarise it for me so I can give you the straight answer.
Greenwood is the company, let's just say, and they've always dealt with the end user, right?
Right.
That they've got the work. That then suddenly this other entity says, "We like the cut of your jib. You're doing pretty well, Greenwood. We like your work. We've seen you on LinkedIn, all of that sort of stuff. We've got a project for you, right? We've got our own client, but we've got a project for you."
Yep.
And Greenwood's never done, let's say they've never done one. We're doing it all the time, but then now this is their first one.
Okay.
What should they change process-wise now to take into consideration that they're not going directly to the end user where they're putting the solar on? They're dealing with this company in the middle.
Yep.
What should they look out for? Anything different from their normal processes and procedures? Or is it simply a case that, something, the end user in this case may come back to Greenwood to ask stuff, and how do you deal with that? I don't know.
Well, I think it's a simple case of, I mean, obviously, it comes back to what I was saying about, when you've got multiple fingers in the pie. I think that, so say Greenwood, the small company, they have, doesn't matter what it is, they've got the contractual obligation to report everything to and deal directly with, the middle user. And then the end user, obviously, still as they are the middle user's client, they still can come directly to us if they need to. There's nothing in the contract says that they can't deal with it with others that I'm aware of. But I think it's just about following the right processes from our end, being Greenwood's. If we're going to communicate with like I said before, we're going to communicate with the end user. It needs to, that communication also needs to flow through to the middle user, whether it's through a system, an email, anything like that. Or a meeting set up at the start of the job with both parties. This is how it's going to work. The site's, our leading hand / site supervisor may deal with the end user on, potential issues or queries X, Y, and Z. But then we will ensure that we will follow up with an email or, a response within their preferred document management system, to the middle user. So it's just all about having that clear, concise communication and direction about the best, method to ensure that all parties are aligned.
I suppose what I was implying was that people may perceive the option of going to an intermediary, Greenwood going to an intermediary and not going to the end user, as being a little bit easier. But in fact, it may be harder because you have got that third party involved.
Correct.
You're actually putting equipment onto their asset.
Yeah.
And it's as you get bigger as a company, you're going to see, case in point, Greenwood, we're doing a lot of that kind of work. And then, so that's why I was trying to find out some kind of advice that you could give a company that wasn't in that space yet, but is moving towards it. Yeah.
I just think that I guess my advice from just my experience, which isn't huge in this area, because a lot of the time our direct client is the asset owner. In a lot of cases, but I guess my advice would be to ensure that you're following your contract obligations, and if there is a need that, especially our site team deals with the end user, that the middle user is communicated and kept in the loop. That's depending on if it's just a small change of a wire or something. The middle user may have been, which most likely in some cases, produce the engineering. So if it could be that their drawing needs to change. So they need to be kept in the loop. Everyone the communication channels need to run through the three, through Greenwood, middle end user. Otherwise, this is where problems could arise.
It's an interesting one because there's been cases where a company has dealt with an intermediary, and that intermediary has bought panels that are 2 or 3 years old, and they are suddenly not on the CEC accredited list for solar panels, or the leads on the panels are not compatible with the existing MC4, etc. connections, and then there's a bit of work needed to rectify that, and I suppose that comes under variations.
It is a yeah.
Is that something like, as a project coordinator, is variations under your mantle of responsibility, or?
I think so, somewhat yes, but I suppose that when there is additional works that weren't identified or weren't around, like they weren't visible at the time of when the contract's signed and the scope of work is identified, outlined. A variation is usually obviously discussed. The works are discussed with the project manager, together with our site team, as well as the project manager from our client or principal contractor client. And then essentially they will talk about what's involved in the additional works, like the time it will take to complete, additional materials, and then I would work then with the project manager to put together some some cost forecasts, and then we also involved our finance team to ensure that so we get all that finalised.
It all comes back to being fairly well prepared.
Absolutely, planning and execution. The planning stage is huge. Yeah,
exactly, and doing the due diligence, and maybe even listening to discussions on podcasts or whatever, wherever you can find the information about this. Because as we said off camera before, unless you've been a project coordinator and you've studied this area for however you do really intensively, you've really got no idea. And remember, all businesses They don't start off with a project coordinator. They
No.
acquire one when they get to a certain size, don't they?
Correct.
To justify.
Absolutely.
So it's a big thing, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. I mean, a project coordinator it's a unique role, if that's the right word to use. In previous roles, in previous companies, you normally would start a team off with your construction manager, an engineer, a HSEQ, and an admin. Normally per project. But the good thing about here at Greenwood is we're diverse, and we're very quite we're resourceful, and we also we wear a lot of hats, so we can all do different things. So as an example, I work heavily on projects within the systems and ensuring that our day-to-day project activities are on track with our teams, etc. But I also can help out, in different areas too, which broadens my horizon. So as an example, looking at, PPE, uniforms, corporate wear, things like that.
Logos.
Yeah, logos, assisting the managing director with all those types of things. So, I enjoy having that bit of diversity, but it all does, come back to being, effective time, having good time management skills and just knowing what you're working on, knowing the job. You don't have to have the knowledge that, say, a project manager does. You don't have to have the knowledge that an electrician does, because I don't have an A grade. I'm not even good at, changing a light bulb. So I didn't say that.
Love it.
Or, so when my headlight of my car goes out, I freak out and go straight to super cheap autos. So, those types of things. But I think it's all
Free
about
plug for super cheap. Nice.
Absolutely.
I love it.
It's all about, just understand as much. You don't have to fully understand the industry that you work in, I don't believe, but you need to have some knowledge. You need to have some understanding of how things operate. So, solar can't run without an inverter, or your larger scales. We also you can have like a BESS or battery energy storage system, and then they all have to talk to each other through a system, through a portal, data logger portal. And every system is different, because you've got some clients that use a certain type of system, or they might use the inverter manufacturer's system. So every project is different, and you're not going to understand. You're like, oh, I've never seen that before. That's okay.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. You just, ask your project manager. I've lent on my project manager very heavily over the last 15 months, and I probably still will continue to on different type of projects that Greenwood's, undertakes in their C&I space. So, but yeah, definitely just ask questions, and as long as the basic administration of of your role that you do, you'll be fine.
It seems that all the skills that you learn as a project coordinator doesn't really matter what the industry is.
No.
I mean, you could transition to construction industry straight away.
Correct.
It's the same skills, isn't it?
It is the same skills. It's just having that basic understanding of what what you are trying to achieve. So the project you're working on, or even if you're not even in the the construction industry, if you're working at Coles stacking shelves, or or working at Coles in the admin department or something like that. It's just having those skills to adapt to whatever role that you decide to do.
Now, we talked, I mentioned off-camera construction management plans, right?
You did,
Yeah.
yes.
Now, could you explain to the listeners what that is and the importance of it for a project, and what's your role within that? Do you put them together? So,
Yeah,
please.
absolutely. Absolutely. So a construction management plan, which we acronym it CMP, is basically the Bible for a job that Greenwood will abide by, essentially. So it will include all the details of the project, your client details, Greenwood's contact details, construction milestone activities, and potential start or approximate start and end dates. They can change, but when you're obviously completing a CMP at the start of the job, you're doing it, based off, a project initial kickoff meeting, the contract, work orders, whatever the information that the project manager has, that will all get collated into a draft plan, which I assist in putting together. It also has a section for health and safety, OH&S obligations. It includes like construction zone layouts, delivery management plans. It has a whole range of like appendice documents that basically build the CMP.
So these can be huge. They can
be depending on the size of the job and the requirements, the site requirements from our client, a middle or end user, depending if it's direct client or if there's two. They can essentially be, a 100-page document.
So forgive my ignorance here. The relationship with the Gantt, is the Gantt created before the construction management plan or the other way around?
Usually it's the other way around, or they can be, coincide, because they're obviously the Gantt can include, it depends how, it depends how detailed, but at the start of the job, but we can look at doing like a project specific where it details every single step. So so as an example, for a solar install, you could have, the racking. So you actually items. So you got like your racking installation, your cable tray, your panel prepping, panel installation, panel cabling, and the nitty gritty is the actual proper steps is I'm probably going to get those wrong. So I'm just giving a high level, and then your panel installation, and then your PVDB install or switchboard, install and commissioning. And then it will go to your, electrical inspection. And obviously there's some inverter installations in there too. So I missed that. Sorry, inverter installation.
No, that's
when I have it in front of me, I'm good. But so definitely they are definitely coincide, because the Gantt's dates will be reflected as your milestone dates in the CMP, and essentially those dates are is what Greenwood will also look at. Milestone payments as well off those construction milestone activities.
Okay. Yeah. So that's part of that.
And that's also obviously come from the contract as well.
Yep. That's, of course, because the contract's driving a lot of this.
Correct.
So when you've got a new project coming up, you obviously, have we created like a template for the construction management plan, and there's just the ability to modify a few key bits of information, because obviously it'd be stupid to start writing one from scratch because it would take forever.
Correct. So we definitely have a template, a couple of templates depending on the type of install. So if it's a solar only, or if it's a solar and BESS install, or a BESS. So we have multiple templates to suit the type of installation project that we're about to work on. So essentially that's where, that's the best way. Otherwise, like you said, it will take us, or take me probably a week to. So essentially, you get a template, you get all the information that you have visibility to. Work with the project manager to ensure that we've got the right information. Nothing has changed since the contract issue and signing, and we work through that and we put that together. I look at developing or creating all the relevant appendice documents. There is maps. We've got evacuation diagram maps that we need to include to ensure that, if you are going to the site where the muster point is, where the toilets are, anything like that. Like it's very detailed. It's very precise, and it needs to have. It's basically the Bible for Greenwood, to show the client that this is what we're doing. This is where everything is. This is how we're going to construct this, design and construct this project.
So as well as coordinating what goes on during the project, you actually are instrumental at the beginning of putting documents together before the project even starts.
Yeah, correct.
So I didn't know that.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, wow.
I do. I put together a lot of documents. So obviously, in addition to the CMP, I mentioned before that has a lot of appendices, and some of the main appendice documents is your health and safety management
Yep,
plan,
right.
which is a OH&S obligation as per the standards, and we also have a emergency response plan. So it has the roles and responsibility of all of our first aiders on site and who that would be. So all of our leading hands and our apprentices are first aid trained. And, it has locations of where our first aid kits will be, our defibrillators, fire extinguishers, and, your key contacts. So, your nearest hospitals, your nearest medical centres, any hotlines like 000 and your poisons, like it covers a range of information. If, in the event of emergency, this is the plan you refer to.
Now, can that construction management plan be like used in all over Australia, or do you have to make slight changes?
They're designed to be project specific.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
if we say had project X, we had working 5 projects within say 12 months, a new project, a new construction management plan would have to be created to, suit that project and its requirements and its obligations.
Wow. It's a big. I mean, I've seen some of these construction management plans, and they're like some of them are like encyclopedias. There's like when printed out, they're huge.
They are, and there is probably a lot of work. Like you said, it's probably, I would guesstimate, depending on the size of the job and the amount of supporting documents that come with the CMP, it can be probably about a week's work.
Wow.
Right? Yeah. Obviously, and working closely with our HSEQ team to refine and review all the information in the safety management plan, as well as the emergency response plans and any other plans that we have to include as part of the construction. So
we
there's a lot involved. Yeah, a lot
really
involved.
is. Yeah, being a project coordinator is no way like you're working, but you really do have to, as we talked about, you really do have to actually like people and be really well organised.
It's a lot of talking. It's probably why I have a permanent husk in my voice. A lot of talking on the day-to-day.
As I said off camera, it's whiskey and cigars or something like that. No, that's now a complete. Well, we're going to take a bit of a tack because women in renewables, right?
Yeah.
Why do you think at this point in time there doesn't seem to be too many of them involved? And when they are involved, it's usually in administrative project coordinators, project management roles. Look, and I'll say this: when I studied this, 40% of the class were women, and this is back in the early, nearly 2000, 2001, 2002. And I don't know myself. Well, what do you think? What do you think? This is a totally personal view about all of this. Obviously, it's a weird one.
It is. I think so. When you say, but I think it's great. Like during my 20 years of working predominantly in the construction industry, it start. So say early 2000s started off to be very male dominated. Wasn't a lot of female roles, or if there were, they were more administrative. But from then to now, you just see these courageous, wonderful women in high powered role, high end roles, in especially in the construction industry. And I've definitely noticed it.
I'm sort of saying the opposite, to tell you the truth.
Oh,
yeah, because when I started, that we had 40% of women in the class, right?
Right.
And now if you go and ask one of our apprentices, there's hardly any women at all in their apprenticeship classes. So I know there has been more women involved in renewable energy, but in specific roles, and I'm just surprised, and it's purely a personal thing I'm asking, why you don't think they're involved in the more electrical role, when a lot of electrical work is not necessarily requiring you to be an Arnold Schwarzenegger bodybuilder lifting all this stuff. It's problem-solving, intricate work that doesn't matter about the physicality side of things, which was always the argument for construction work and electrical work. So, yeah, what do you reckon?
Okay, well, sorry, I was going off the different path there, but essentially, well, I will say from an electrician's perspective, when I was with Zinfra in my almost 2 years there, I put through 2 out of, I think it was 6 first year apprentices. I put through 2.
Oh, wow.
2, and I believe they're still there today in their second and third year.
Oh, wow.
Third years. So I guess maybe I've noticed things a little bit differently, where I've actually seen, maybe not so much in the renewables, but in your HV power, there is a lot more women coming through wanting to, to change their careers or start their careers in the electrical industry. And there was a lot, quite from memory, there was a lot more resumes, obviously, or CVs that of people that were female.
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
So it might be a renewable energy thing. But yeah, that's
might
really
be.
that's really because we need balance. I mean, like you need balance in any industry, don't you?
Yep.
And like it's such an exciting field, and there's so many opportunities for so many different roles. Like
100%.
You've mentioned you're a project coordinator. You've mentioned project control. You mentioned project management. A million different kind of organisation, administrative things. Let alone there's a lot of electrical engineers who are women now, which is fantastic. Yep. And by the sounds of it, there is a few electricians out there as well. Yep. I wish there was more because it's like it's rewarding as they get paid well. And if you've got that problem-solving thing, being an electrician is a wonderful thing.
It is, definitely.
And if you're an electrician and electrical engineer, you're unstoppable. And we've got a couple of those here.
Yeah, we do.
As part of the engineering team. It's such an exciting industry. So yeah, I urge anyone out there, if you are interested, just get involved. So what advice would you give someone to try to get their foot in the door to this whole industry? Like,
I would certainly recommend, if anyone is interested in working, in the renewables, to definitely look at doing some research, seeing if there's anyone that you could speak to. I know that Greenwood, we have an area information area where we could, you could reach out to us, and if we had, any information to provide you, then absolutely we would. But I think, it's definitely a rewarding, industry, and it's kind of new, it's kind of exciting, and it's definitely something I'd recommend to those, especially male and female, but females in particular. There's nothing we can't do. So
no, absolutely, and that's the thing.
Yeah,
it's and look, let's face it, renewables is not going anywhere.
No.
Even after this upcoming election. If for those who are watching this after the election, I don't know, but it really is a no-brainer, and it's such an interesting area, and the amount of energy that's going to be required, especially now with AI data, the whole AI thing, the data centers. We're certainly in the right industry, aren't we?
We are.
When's your next holiday?
Probably not for a little while. A lot of the public holidays have almost, passed us for 2025. But no, I probably no holiday until later in the year. So just focus. We've got quite a lot of projects coming up. So I really want to be here and be part of those, and do what I do best.
Now, I didn't ask this before, but a lot of you doing a lot of documentation stuff. I mean, what do you like? Is a lot of spreadsheet type stuff? Is that what, at the end of the day, are you doing sort of that kind of spreadsheet format for your document, like for your task lists and your filtered lists and stuff like that? Or is it not like that? Is it more like a written paragraph form?
I'm a bit old school, so for my to-do list is more written form, and I tick things off. But when I was touching on earlier about like our project-specific project task lists, they are all done through one of Greenwood's preferred management systems. So it just depends. There's multiple ways to be able to track, your checklists and things. But old school is writing, but we can also use fundamental systems to do that.
Now, we'd mentioned, well, we didn't actually, but we nowadays use Procore a bit. Can you, is that something that you know a little bit about that you can talk about? I don't want to extol the virtues of one particular brand over another. Honestly, we are just talking about what we use.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
the
yeah.
listener, whatever you want to use, this is what we use and this is what we do. We're going to be very open about it. We use Airtable and we use fast fields.
We do. Yep.
And then we use Procore, which I don't know much about. What is do we use?
We use Procore, but it's not actually Greenwood's system.
Okay.
Well, not yet, maybe one day. But essentially, it's one of our principal contractors
Like
system.
Miss X.
Yes,
X.
correct. That one.
Gotcha,
That
yeah.
one. So,
Right.
and obviously there is, so part of our contract obligations is to upload most of our documentation on the day-to-day and also for a handover closeout to the relevant project within Procore. So
Right.
it can, so I can probably spend sometimes a couple of hours a day uploading what I need to,
Wow.
depending on what the task is. And obviously we've got multiple projects for our principal contractor at once. I can certainly be,
Wow.
ensuring that the right documents are being updated, uploaded and transmitted, submitted. It's a great tool. It's primarily a document management system,
Right.
but you can transmit between various or multiple parties, so
Ah.
internal, external. So
Right.
our principal contractor uses that to send requests for information to us, transmit engineering drawings if they're looking after the engineering side, and also it's a great way for me to ensure that all the documentation required for their handover is uploaded into the right areas within that project base of Procore.
It's really interesting. I think one thing for smaller businesses or looking into getting bigger and doing bigger projects is that don't go crazy buying or locking yourself into really expensive programs first. Try to see if you can do it in Google, a Google Sheets or an Excel, and when the limitations of that approach start appearing, then you start looking at things like Airtable, etc. But there is a big problem with companies where they have this what's called app bloat, and they have all these applications that may not be used effectively, and yet this app's $100 a month, and that one's $50 a month, but it's $60 if you have another user, and it's a pretty you
And it
really
all
waste a lot of
adds
money.
up, correct.
It does.
Like you said, Valley, if anyone out there is not, buying these great programs, but you're only using, 50-60% of its capacity,
Yeah,
it's not it's not productive.
it is, isn't it?
And it's not cost effective. So, like you said, definitely there is some, systems that are probably a little bit more cost effective that can do multiple, tasks.
As a project coordinator, are you sort of part of that conversation when people are potentially talking about other platforms and stuff? Yeah.
I have been.
Yeah, wow.
So, there has been talk about, moving to a more, HSC, management database. We've obviously used Fastfield for a long time.
Yeah.
We've been a small company for quite a while, but now we're obviously growing. So I know that we're looking at, branching out and getting a more, is it diverse might not be the right word, but that, a broader system that, can essentially assist with a lot of our management plans and our project setup documentation, rather than doing a lot of it manually. So it's definitely something that Greenwood's looking at to minimise that time where I said it takes a week for, for these documents. It could take, a day, if that.
Yeah, wow.
So,
Wow.
having templates set up. So we are looking at that.
Right.
But Fastfield, if for smaller businesses, I would definitely recommend as your, form storage system. It works really well. Our team in the field have access to it remotely where they can download a form they need to fill out, whether it's an inspection form, a daily pre-start. It's all there. And also, we also do use Fastfield to create and issue project site-specific inductions.
Okay.
For all our projects, which I obviously, as a project coordinator, oversee I manage with our HSEQ team overseeing that process.
It's interesting, isn't it? Like sometimes when people are reluctant to change, And sometimes if people get locked into a certain way of doing things,
Yep.
it can sometimes be hard to sort of say, by the way, we're changing to this system and you better get used to it. And I'm not that, obviously that statement's got nothing specifically to do with project coordination. It's more like a general rule when a company gets to a certain size and you are, going, well, we can't use this anymore. It's not fit for purpose. We're too big. We're doing too much. Let's look at something else. And, but I like this, and I'm stuck in my ways. And that's a human nature thing, isn't it?
It is. It is a human nature.
It's
Yeah. As we
remember,
get older, it becomes more of a common occurrence. Yeah.
now. We have talked about a lot of stuff, and I like to go back. I like to go back to the Murray.
More than happy to continue to talk about that. Yeah.
Do you do any fishing up there?
Oh, the few times I have, I've caught nothing, so it's a bit of a deterrent for me. But friends and partner likes to fish up there.
Do you think when you get older that you would? Is that a place you might like retire to? Is it? Yeah, that's
Might not be that specific area of the Murray, but it's definitely something that once I hit retirement age, which is still a while away, but that is definitely the plan for my, end years. Yeah.
It really is near and dear to your heart. That's really
It
good.
is. It is.
It's so nice to have a place like that which you have this really strong connection to.
Yeah.
It's a really good thing.
Yeah, it's a good, like you said, it's a great way to have, to be able to decompress and have that area to be able to just relax, unwind, especially, when we work for, 90% of our lives. It's good to, when we have that 10% to just, relax.
It's the old, we don't live to work, we work to live, but at the end of the day too, you spend so much time working.
You do.
You better be, try to get some enjoyment out of it because you're spending so much time and
correct.
And whatever that enjoyment is. What kind of are any personal goals that you want to hit in the next 5-10 years? Like we talked about off camera, project management. Is that something that you want to move to eventually, or?
It's something I've thought about, but obviously being quite new still, I find myself quite new to renewables. It's more of a long-term goal. Yep. I really want to understand more about renewables, and understand a bit more technical, of how the systems operate and their functionalities, I guess, and a little bit more of the understanding of the design and engineering phase. Not that I want to be a designer or engineer, but just understanding the start to end, of the actual technical side, rather than the project coordination side. But yes, it is something that I've thought about, and I've also thought one day I might even look at a role in HSEQ.
Yeah, right, yeah.
I do have my Cert 4 in occupational health and safety.
Oh, wow.
I completed that at the start of 2023. Anyway, so it was a few years ago now. It's definitely.
Wow, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Now that we're doing these bigger jobs, it's not only the electrical side, it's the construction side as well.
Yeah.
That, people can get hurt, people can get crushed, and they can, God forbid, type thing. But it's really
alarming, especially the amount of occurrences and instances where we see these unforeseen accidents and worse deaths, and it's just something that we just need to keep striving to zero. I know that you hear that everywhere, but we need to try as an industry or as
absolutely
as a society, we need to do whatever we can.
The goal should always be zero. The 100%. Goal, there should be nothing. That should be the goal.
Absolutely agree.
Because otherwise, as like when I spoke to Aaron in the other podcast about swims, the ramifications are not just for the individual; it's for the company, family and friends, the community. It's powerful stuff. I think on that note, we've talked on a pretty broad range of subjects today, and I'd like to say thanks so much for coming down into the studio, the newly configured studio.
It's amazing.
It is amazing. They've done such a great job, and I've learned I've learned a heck of a lot, and I reckon the people listening would have learned we'll learn a heck of a lot as well. So thanks so much, Alana.
No worries, Valley. No problems. Thank you so much for having me.